Hello, and welcome to Morgan Latif Presents Coaching You Through Crisis. I'm Sam Latif, co-founder and director of Morgan Latif and your host. And this week, we have two very special guests for our series finale. The first is my co-founder and director, Oliver Morgan, and the second is Jean-Pierre de Villiers. Oliver and I both welcome JP as he is actually the first experience we had with a leadership coach. And we really talk about, in Oliver in particular, the value that he saw from that and how we then use that as a spark to really create this model where we incorporate coaches. And beyond that, we really talk about the journey JP's had, which is truly a fascinating one, how he became a coach, and more importantly, over the last year, how he overcame his own personal crisis, having gone through a serious accident, and how he rebuilt himself not only physically, but mentally. He himself brings over 2 decades of high performance coaching. He's also a speaker and a published author and an elite vegan athlete, having competed in numerous Ironmans and ultramarathons. He runs his own coaching business, and through that, he really helps numerous individuals on how to really get to their full potential and perform at their best by transforming their body, their mind, and their spirit. So he's a fascinating guy, as somebody that, again, we have great appreciation for being on the show and telling us the story, and particularly what has gone through in the last year, and hopefully really resonates with the Coaching in Crisis series and a fitting finale. So we hope you enjoy it, and why don't we jump into the conversation. JP, Oliver, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Good to be here.
Thanks for that, Sam. Appreciate it.
So I thought it was fitting as our series finale, a special guest being JP. I obviously gave you guys your intros beforehand, but I actually thought it was fitting for Oliver to tell us a little bit about what your relationship was with leadership coaching. Particularly that came through JP, and obviously that sort of was a little bit of the spark for us when we started the idea of coaches. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with that, and that would be a good lead into sort of getting to know JP a little bit more in his words.
Yeah, sure, of course. So in a nutshell, extremely positive. I think over the years, it has, for me, not only just increased my, I would say, self-awareness, but also performance, my mindfulness, absolutely my fitness. Even before coaching, I thought fitness wasn't important, but that's one of the first things that JP got out of my mind. But I think it's all around performance improvement and preparing yourself for any situation. And that falls into not just, it's your mindset, your perspective. I think we're relating this back to coaching through crisis, and mindset, positivity, attitude. That would be my view. I don't know if you'd add anything, JP, on that yourself.
No, so you pretty much nailed it. I mean, you didn't say how awesome I was, but yeah, those are the benefits of coaching.
The best. No, it's absolutely, and that's a testament. That's why we've got you on here today. It actually, Morgan Latif, one of our premium solutions for our customers, is a combined search and coaching solution for the executives we place, and that was really born out of the amazing improvement I saw in myself as a leader from the work that we've done together. So great to have you here.
I remember you mentioning to me this idea of combining coaching with what you're already doing and what you guys are masterful at. And I'm grateful to be here. You know, we've tried to get this to happen over the last few months, and finally we're here. So yeah, happy to be here. Let's add some value.
Right. And look, I thought as is custom with the show, I always want to understand the origin story, right? So again, I've also had the pleasure at Chapman Black of listening to you speak, but I think you have a fascinating journey of how you actually became a coach. So talk us briefly through how that happened, JP. What was the kind of the spark for you in wanting to really be this kind of performance, this motivational coach?
Awesome. I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, and I didn't have the toughest life, but I just didn't have a life that I liked. And like a lot of us do in life, if we don't like what we're seeing or what we're experiencing, we go find ways to feel good elsewhere. So at the age of 13, I started to find a way for me to feel good, regardless of what was going on at school, regardless of what was going on at home. I found sport, and I could always feel good in sport. Without me knowing it, I found my first strategy. I found my first thing that I could use as a tool for me to change myself or my life. And I used it as a tool from 13 until 19. I fell in love with cycling. I became a semi-pro cyclist. I had a team, sponsors, everything, just not a salary yet. And then at 19 years old, after spending most of my teens on my bike, my cousin said, all you do is race your bloody bike. Why don't you come spend the weekend with me? And at 19 years old, I went to my first electronic music nightclub, and I found lots of other strategies for feeling good. Let's just say that. And I thought, you know what? I don't know what it's like to be a cool teenager, because all I did was hide in sport and find my worth and find myself in fitness. So let me take a few years break and let me just enjoy being a teenager, or what is left of it. And unfortunately, because of the power of immersion, the more we jump into something, the better we get at that thing. Doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative or forward moving or pulling us back. I fell into that life of hedonism and music and partying, and very quick forward to 23. From 19, I went from falling in love with clubs to figuring out I'm never going to be a professional cyclist. If I keep living this lifestyle, I need to choose something else to do that makes me feel good. I loved music. I became a DJ. I pursued a DJ career. It took me across from South Africa to the UK on a plane at the first time in my life at 20 years old. And at 23 years old, I was a full-time DJ in London, around Europe. I DJed in Scotland. And at 23 years old, at the end of that year, at New Year's Eve, I was playing to a club full of people in Riga, Latvia. Now, I pretty much grew up with no money. It came and it went, but most of the time it went. And at 23 years old, I was staying in the Radisson Hotel. I had a driver pick me up at the airport, drive me to the club 1 hour before the club night. I had my own VIP DJ room. And anyway, I was a rock star that night. And the next morning, I looked at my life and I looked at the direction that I had gone. Because where we go is our responsibility. It's our fault, especially as an adult, right? We have some excuses as a child, but when you're an adult, you are fully responsible for who you have become. And I guess I do have a gift. I have a natural gift of awareness. I'm incredibly aware of how people talk, what I see around me, and what I see and feel in me. And I had this awareness that this has become my life as a result of where I have gone. And I didn't like the way my life was unfolding. You see, I was all about consumption. Because I had a lack of, I wanted to consume. And I had it all: popularity, acceptance, significance, success, fame. I guess in my head, I had fame. I was a rock star, but I wasn't actually doing anything when it came to the meaning of life. What's the meaning of life? It's who we become. It's all about becoming. It's how we contribute and what we leave behind us. And I wasn't doing anything positive. So I thought, okay, if I can lead myself in the wrong direction, surely I can lead myself in the right direction. I've just got to figure out different strategies, because the strategies I've been using haven't been working for me. And as that old quote goes, you do the same thing over and over again, you expect a different result. That's the definition of insanity, right? Einstein said that, not me. He knew a thing or two. So I thought, I can't keep doing the same thing. And the same in business, we do the same thing. We hit our head against the wall. No, if I just hit a little bit harder. No, let's just hit a little bit longer. Come on, guys, motivate me. But there's a door down there. Just walk out the bloody door. Stop hitting your head. And I needed to change my direction. I needed to look around. And I needed to gain new perspective. So I fell into coaching at 23 years old, just for me. No intention to save anyone, help anyone, lead anyone. I needed to save, help, and lead myself. I got a coach. I changed my environment, changed my habits, changed my language. Those 4 things completely changed my life. At 25 and a half years old, I felt like a rock star again, but from the inside out, not the outside in. I had a beautiful girlfriend. I was confident, certain, energized, and passionate again about life. And I thought, man, I've got a lot of tools, and these tools are very, very useful. I thought, I wonder if I can help other people lead themselves in a better direction, and ultimately in the best direction. And at 25 years old, I looked back at my life and I thought, do I really want to do this? 1, yes, it saved my own life. But 2, when I was 13 years old, my father took his own life. He led himself in the worst direction. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, I can help people become their best, but maybe I can help people stop suffering. So 25 and a half years old at a gym in London, I walked past the mirror on my left-hand side in the weight section. I said, that's it. I know too much. My awareness is too high to ignore. For the rest of my life, I'm going to lead people. After I lead myself. And for 18 years, I've been leading myself. That's it. As a student first. I've just spent last week in a monastery hanging out with Buddhists and Shaolin masters. Why? Because I keep wanting to be better. I keep wanting to grow. And only when I find something that works for me, I go and share it with people. And I'm blessed to be able to do that as a coach, speaker, and author. And I've been doing that for the last 18 years. I've spoken in 16 different countries. I've written 4 books, and my fifth book is coming out now. I've worked with clients like Oliver, and it's brought me to many amazing, inspirational environments, connections, conversations, and that brings me to where we are today.
Yeah, and look, we can have I'm sure we could do a 3-hour podcast, a la Joe Rogan, about your life story there. And it's been a fascinating one, and I recommend anybody to sort of deep dive into that a little bit further if you're really interested. But in particular for the Coaching in Crisis series, I thought you were a really fascinating guy to talk to, because in particular you had an accident about a year ago, and we were very close to it because you were doing this amazing chariot ride with a colleague of ours back in that day. So, and you've had to go again through this extraordinary journey over the last year, and this level of resilience and this level of how you coach yourself out of these crises, and how you've really built yourself up, rebuilt yourself up, and continue to want to improve yourself, I thought would be really valuable. And again, really interesting to know in regards to this Coaching in Crisis series. So talk to us a little bit give us some context. I mean, what happened in that accident, and where were you kind of starting from to where you got now?
So I love talking about this just because it's been such a pivotal moment in my life. To go back to what Oliver said before, that I didn't realize fitness was that important until I had a conversation with JP. I've said to many people for years that you're not training for today, you're training for your future. You know, when you do leadership training in organizations, you're doing it for your future, not for today. You're preparing yourself. Everything that you're doing today is a setup for what might come tomorrow, i.e. COVID, i.e. a near-death accident. Just over a year ago, after practicing what I'd been practicing since the age of 23, I was left in a position that I could have lost my life. I was cycling across the UK for charity, for good cause, good measure, and on day 8 of 10 days, we'd cycled about 800 miles. We had about 200 to go, but we realized we were short and we needed to change our strategy. Right? Sometimes life doesn't go according to plan, and you just have to be willing to pivot. That's it, without overthinking it. So we just went, hey, let's go there. And we put our finger on the map. And that day changed my life. Or that pointing that finger in that direction changed my life, because I was cycling the next day, on the 8th day, and I was hit head on by a drunk driver, unfit to drive, disqualified from driving, not even his own car. In a hit and run accident, my bike was broken up into pieces. I was flown off the road, lodged between a barrier and a tree. And I lay there and people could watch the life draining out of me. All sorts of injuries, broke my legs in multiple places, my arm punctured and collapsed, my lung, had internal surgeries. Spent 2 weeks in intensive care, and the doctors told me when I finally came around, you're lucky you're so fit and healthy. And I thought, isn't that interesting? That the thing I've been talking about where people think it's purely superficial has saved my damn life. And I thought, okay, that's obviously worked for me. Now I have a choice. I'm coming to day 10, day 11. I have a choice now. There's no meaning in life. There is no reality that is set upon you. You create your meaning, you create your reality. And I knew that my choice was to create the meaning of this experience and to create what this means and the reality that I'm going to experience. So I said, okay, what other tools do I have that I've been sharing with people like Oliver and my other clients and on stages, and that I've been learning myself? Number one was I had to hold myself responsible. I could quite easily say it was the driver's fault. Yeah. But just like COVID, if you blame COVID for where you are, you give your personal power away. You become a victim. Oh, it's COVID's fault. It might be, but it doesn't benefit you or your business or your clients in any way by saying, I choose to blame. So I made it my fault. I just said, it's my fault I chose that route. It's my fault I worked with Callum. It's my fault I worked with a company that Callum was working for. It's my fault I became a coach at 25. It's my fault I decided to change my life at 23. It's my fault I decided to move to the UK at 20. I made it my fault. And by doing that, I gave myself the freedom and the permission to work on me and change the situation. So last year was an incredibly pivotal moment in my life. And I went to work with all of these tools on making my recovery inspirational, choosing to be victorious and not a victim. And it's funny because once again, last year's accident was a setup for COVID. Because when COVID hit me, all I said was, it's just the same. In Thailand, you say same, but different. It's just the same for me. I could apply those same tools. Now, I don't know whether you want me to go into the tools right now, but
I was going to say it might be useful just briefly when you're talking about it's the same, it's about applying the same tools. Maybe just in a few words, what those tools are that could prepare you for this occasion.
So number one, I'm going to speak from the place of the accident, but I want everyone to relate it to COVID and on the bigger picture, any crisis. Any unexpected disruption in your life, where life is throwing something at you and you didn't know it was going to happen. Okay, so we look at COVID. I'm speaking from a place of the accident, but listing big picture. Number one, make yourself responsible for how it is. Now you have the freedom to change it. Number two, no one ever wins alone. No one. No boxer, no entrepreneur, no employee, no CEO, no one, no sports person, no football player, no one wins alone. So secondly, you've got to get around the right people. I lay in hospital, not being able to move my legs, but I could move my arms, and I went to work with my journal. And I said, who do I need around me right now? Who do I need to be consuming their content? Who do I need to be calling right now? Whose energy do I need? Because energy is everything. Whose energy do I need to thrive in this experience? Same thing with COVID. Right? I was lucky because my whole business and life was already disrupted last year. But when COVID came, I just said, okay, who do I need to speak to? Do not go at it alone. One of my coaches, one of the people I choose to spend time with, or should I say invest my time in, said to me these words. And if anything, I would get people to write this down because it's a real gift. If you're doing it alone, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing it alone, you're doing it wrong. Get around the right people. The third thing I did in my accident was I responsibly, with the responsibility, I responsibly asked myself, what is this going to mean? What does this mean for me? Now, one of my greatest role models in my life, Tony Robbins, he's a multi-millionaire. And his whole business is based on face-to-face events, putting 5,000 to 16,000 people in a room at $500 to $5,000 or even $10,000. COVID-19 hits, his business disappears. So what does he do? He goes, what's this mean? He doesn't go into victim mode. He says, what does this mean? If we can't do it this way, how can we do it? And that brings me to the fourth thing, which is always focus what is in your control. There's three places where we put our mind, or our mindset. What we can't control, what we can influence, and what we can control. Most people focus on what we can't control. You can't control as an individual right now that COVID is happening. You can't control the economy. You can't control that you have to wear masks. You can influence the people around you, but you can't control them either. You can influence your team, but you can't control them, unless through tyranny. You can control yourself, though. You can control the very first thought you have, although not easy. You can control the very first thought you have in the morning. For example, by asking a really good question about what is today going to mean? COVID is COVID. This accident is this accident. The world is what it is today. But what am I going to choose as the meaning of today? And then obviously your results that you get will be a result of the actions that you take based on the meaning that you give that day. For example, a really great thing to say every day is today is going to be an extraordinary day. Now, it sounds very fluffy, very personal development-y, but you are choosing the meaning. If you can't even get yourself to say that, how do you think you're going to change business? How do you think you're going to change your environment if you can't even get yourself to be more optimistic in your own language and what you speak into existence? So those are the first 4 things that I did in my accident. And the same 4 things I did in February, March, when I realized just as all of my work was being rebooked, it was going to get canceled again. I held myself responsible. I invested in the right people, in time, energy, and money, and travel. I chose the most powerful meaning that I could have. To come back to my example of Tony Robbins, he said, what does this mean? What can we focus on? And his 40 years of his life have been based on creating the biggest personal development event. So he says, you know what? Why don't we create the biggest online personal development event that's ever existed? And last week, he ran a Zoom call for 30,000 people, 30,000. He had a studio near his home where they had a 10-foot, 360-degree screen where he just walked around and could see 20 odd thousand people around him. Now, who's going to do that? Not a lot of people. You have to have a certain type of mindset to be able to do that, to be able to be so incredibly optimistic in crisis, but it is possible, and it's a great example. If anyone wants to see what I've just shared, go to Google or YouTube and type in "Unleash the Power Within Virtual," and you'll see the whole experience. It is truly extraordinary. And when you see someone's whole business ripped away and they go in 3 months, create that, it gives you a little bit of hope and faith that you can turn your situation around. And then the 4th thing was obviously focus. And that's a day-by-day thing. The meaning is the intention, the greatness behind what you're doing, the mission behind your madness, or the madness behind your mission. The focus is looking at what's right in front of you. Like driving at night. If you have your headlights off, you're going to freak out every day. Like COVID, like the accident. I don't know what's going to happen. Why did this happen to me? Where do I go next? But if you put your headlights on, click. At least you can see what's right in front of you. And that is incredibly powerful, even though it seems so simplistic. Oh, focus on what you can. No, like that is where you get your power every day. What can I do today? Forget the rest.
And it's interesting, you talk so much about the self-accountability, but also you have to be able to rely on people. And there's a quote that I love, which is the conversations you have with yourself are just as important as the conversations you have with other people. So, that self-talk is also important. When do you actually decide on what are the things that you need to deal as yourself? And then when do you draw in that help to sort of get you through that? How did you make that distinction? What challenges did you think were right for you, and which were the ones that were right for help?
So I would say I agree with that, but if I had to say it in my own way, it would be that the conversations with others are more important than the conversations I have with myself, because we only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. And what do we truly know? We don't really know anything. Right? You can look at a tree and say, oh, that's a tree. Do you really know that's a tree? Does everyone here listening really know that when you see a tree, that's a tree? Or is it just something that you've been told? See, if we have a belief can actually stop us from seeing the truth. Now, it's important to have positive beliefs, powerful beliefs. But if you're standing in front of me, Sam, and Oliver's standing over there, and I cover my sight, I can't see him, and you say, hey, who's that over there? I say, oh, it's Oliver. Oh, look, why don't you look? No, I don't want to look. I know what it is. I know who it is. It's Oliver. Right now, I had the strong belief that it's him standing over there, but until I can truly see what it is, I don't know that it's the truth. So what I'm saying here is I always choose to question everything. And my students and clients know I say this often. I never claim to know it all. I am a student first before I'm a teacher. I am a coachee first before I'm a coach. I am in the audience before I am a speaker. For me personally, I might be labeled as these things, a coach and a speaker, etc. But I question everything because I never, ever want to have a belief that I know something where it becomes at my own expense, because I'm not willing to question my own beliefs and my own thoughts. So the short answer for your question is I always go to people first. Secondly, so I would say choose the right people around you, go to them first. Secondly, once you have the information that you believe you have or that you need, then go inside, trust your intuition, and make a decision based on that. But I always go to others first. I never make a decision ever in my life until I've brought it out into a conversation. Because sometimes just speaking it to someone before they even answer, I get a different twist on what I want or what I believe just by speaking it into existence. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And one of the things also, but you also seem to have this consistency when it comes to these things, right? So, I mean, even though you've had this accident, again, I remember you speaking in our old company, and the kind of energy and the drive and the resilience you have is unchanged regardless of what's happened to you. And I think consistency is difficult for a lot of people.
So
absolutely.
How do you get that consistency in your mindset, because it's tough, anybody that's done an endurance sport or has gone through a tough situation, it's not maybe the first few days, but it's really being able to wake up with that same level of energy and hunger to sort of do better. How do you find that consistency?
First of all, great question for your audience. Really great question. Secondly, when I had my accident, a few people came back to me afterwards, including Callum, the guy that I was cycling with.
Callum Brian.
Yeah, your former colleague. And Callum said to me, bro, you've always been so inspiring to me, blah, blah, blah. He said, but now that I've seen you go through this accident, he said, your impact on me has gone to another level. I'm paraphrasing here, right? I'm just sharing the story. He said, here's why. The person before the accident and after the accident is exactly the same. You haven't changed at all. So I'm just sharing that because you mentioned this consistency thing. Consistency is incredibly important. Now, if we bring that to business, and if we bring that to leadership, one of the most important ingredients for a great leader is consistency. Because if you're leading people and they're waiting to be led by you, the first thing they need to know is that they know how you're going to show up, when you're going to show up, or if you're going to show up. They need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to, when you walk into the office and randomly say, hey guys, we're leaving, let's go. Let's get out of here. Who's with me? They need to have so much faith in your consistency that even if they don't know what's going on, they just need to be willing to walk out the door with you. And you need consistency for that. So how does someone have consistency? Once again, to go back to what I shared, I only share or coach in what I know. I only preach what I have practiced in my own life. Does that make sense?
No.
You can't give someone else what you don't have. Now, a lot of us are trying to sell things and lead people in areas that we are not experienced or things that we don't have. But people see through that very, very quickly. So for me, what has worked? There might be other ways, but for me, it's been these three things. Number one, always have some kind of role model that you aspire to be like, someone that impresses you, someone that inspires you, someone that challenges you to be your best. Because if you have that person, like in the tribal world, it would be called an elder, right? Someone that's always there, pushing you, encouraging, guiding you. Or in our world here in this conversation, it's a coach. I'm conscious of saying coaching because some people say, oh, I can't afford a coach, or I can't have a full-time coach. A coach can be anyone. A coach is someone who guides you. That's it. But a role model is a great word. And that can be through books, podcasts, whatever. Number one, have a role model, because that person, even in faith, will give you what you need to get up and show up every day. Number two, and I'm very, very good at this, is keep putting yourself in environments of change. If we look at where coaching originated in sport, what do athletes do to get to the best version of themselves just before a competition? Where do they go?
Training camps.
Training camp, absolutely. Why do they go to a training camp?
To, I would say, concentrate everything that they've learned into an intense environment.
To be fully immersive in an intense environment, to have no distractions, to raise their energy. Energy is everything, and for you to go from where you are to where you want to go next, up to a next level, and then up to a next level, you need more energy. Emotional, mental, physical energy. So think of yourself as an athlete, because ultimately we are an athlete in our own life, and we're looking to be our own world champion in whatever it is that we want to be, or whoever it is we want to become. You need to put yourself in training camps. Now, I've done that through masterminds, coaching weekends, Tony Robbins events. Last week, I went to live in a Shaolin temple and Buddhist monastery. That's a training camp. Last year, I lived 2 weeks in silence in a Buddhist meditation center in the UK. That's a training camp. January, I went and spent a week with Dr. Joe Dispenza and worked on my mindset through meditation and breath. Training camp. We need to be able to put ourselves in these environments where we can challenge our own thinking, raise our awareness, and raise our energy. And you need to be doing it at least every 3 months, 4 times a year.
Do you think there are less extreme examples? Because I think, especially with, let's say, modern leaders, taking these weeks out may not be practical or maybe a bit extreme. Are there other ways in which people can help form habits or give themselves other forms of training camps in your experience?
Do a 10K if you're really unfit. Sign up to a 10K race. In that day, what are you immersed in? Becoming the best version of yourself. If you have some kind of general fitness, sign up to a marathon, half marathon, Ironman, full Ironman, half Ironman. Sign up to, like I took a lot of corporate clients on a few years ago, do the 3 Peaks Challenge. Climbing the 3 highest peaks in the UK. It's just climbing a bloody mountain. It's not extreme. And if you find that extreme, we got bigger problems. Because if you want to lead and you can't lead yourself to just walk and climb up and down a mountain, you need to be looking at that first. How can you take care of others if you can't take care of yourself? How can you lead others if you can't lead yourself? It could be going to, it could be going to a religious gathering if you're religious, where in that environment, you're in the deep end and you're not distracted with anything else. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Yeah,
and I guess tying it back to the consistency topic, are you saying that it's the training and the targets and the goals that in training for something like that will help people with the consistency in other areas?
No, it's the immersion. It's the being in the deep end without any distraction whatsoever. If you want to learn how to swim, the easiest way to do it is jump in the deep end. Meaning go straight or go all in. There's this Buddhist quote, there's 2 mistakes in life or in pursuing what it is that you want in life. 1, not starting, and 2, not going all the way. Find little pockets in your life where you can go all the way. Here's another example. For 10 years, I've ran a retreat in Thailand where people can retreat from their current life. And by stepping outside of the arena of their life, they're able to just for a week in Thailand, step into the pavilion, be immersed in health and fitness and wellness, and be able to look at their life from a different perspective. That's all this is about. The role models, the coaching, the immersion. It's about looking at your life from a different perspective. But you can't see your life in a different way, or you can't get the energy to go back in your life and change it if you're always in it with blinkers on. How many people, because we don't change our environment, we get to the end of a work week, a work month, or even a work year where we go, damn, this was busy time for me. But did I actually get better? Did I actually improve this year? Did I grow? Did I contribute more than last time? And you just haven't given yourself the space to be able to question that properly. So the third thing is, when it comes to the training and the tools and stuff, because that was obviously number 2. The first one was role models. The second one was this jump in the deep end every 3 months, get yourself into an event and experience where you have no distraction and you can focus just on you. I'm going to get to the third thing now. I'm going to share one more example. Once a year, I get permission from my wife to go away. It might just be I go stay in a log cabin and I turn off everything digital and I just stay there on my own. And in that space, by removing all the noise on the outer life, I'm able to focus on not the outside, but I'm able to focus on the inside. And I'm able to learn to know myself better, understand myself better, and love myself better. Right? There's no better form of self-leadership than getting to a place of unconditional love for yourself. Because when you have that level of personal leadership, like it says behind me, you will have unconditional love for everyone that you serve in your business, your team, your community, your family, etc. The third thing, and the most important, it makes the previous 2 redundant if you don't apply this. It's repetition, repetition, repetition. It's what you do every day. I don't know if you remember, Oliver, but it was the 10 non-negotiables that I always talk about. What are the 10 things that you do every day non-negotiably? That is determining whether you'll actually follow through on everything that it is you're going to say, that you're going to do. That is determining whether you're going to bridge the gap between where you are now, personally or professionally, and where you want to be. What you're doing every single day is determining who you're becoming, financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So when it comes to repetition and changing your life day by day, I have this phrase, do the work. It doesn't matter who you are in life or business, there is always work to do. And the first step to us changing our life is awareness. You can't change anything until you're aware that it needs changing or you want to change it. So in this conversation right now, let me ask you listening, are you aware of the work that you need to be doing to get you where you want to go? And number 2, are you holding yourself responsible to doing that work every day? Because you can't, if you want to save people, you need to learn how to swim first if you want to save them in the water.
No, look, I think overall that those kind of 3 key things are, I said, easily, I think everybody has an awareness of them, and as said, it's sort of kind of practical steps to really help apply them. And as I said, the repetition, the repeat, the consistency, that's hopefully going to be the thing that really guides them through it. And look, I know you're a busy guy, and I think we talked a little bit about how you really learned from this journey that you've had, how you practice the consistency. But I also wanted to sort of give you the final word on particularly the new normal that we're all facing, how this has changed the world in drastic ways. Like, what's your final advice to leaders now? Any leaders, anybody that can essentially influence people. What's your final advice with all the life experience you've had? And again, given your personal journey over the last year, what's your final advice to leaders in this kind of new world we're going to be living in?
If you make your crisis about you, you're already failing. Make your crisis about others. Like that example that I gave before with Tony Robbins. He turned his crisis into, how else can I serve? There's all these people waiting to be served by me. What can we do to continue being of service to these people? It's the same approach I gave to my life and my business, and allowed me to pivot fast. So in short, do not make your business about you. Do not make your leadership about you, because depressed people that are focused on depressed people focused on being depressed get more depressed. People in struggle that focus on how much they're struggling struggle more. Whatever we focus on expands. Focus on service. Focus on how you can evolve and reinvent yourself in this reset. Because that's all this is. Yeah. It's a reset. Nothing in life stays the same. Secondly, I'd like to share this. Let go of all expectation. As I was driving into the office this morning, I was thinking, what's one thing that I'd really like to share as a takeaway for this conversation? And it's this, to let go of all expectation. Because COVID hasn't screwed anyone. Not even people that have lost people in their lives. What screws us is our expectation of those people being in our life or how our business should be. Does that make sense? We have an expectation of how things should be. And then because life doesn't match that expectation, we are let down. Let go of our expectation, get into appreciation, appreciate every day that amongst everything that's happening, you still have a heartbeat. You can still get up and create. And the ultimate creation, let me rewind a little bit. The ultimate goal in your business, with this podcast, with my life and everything that I do, is we want to feel good. We want to feel good in growth, in contribution, in service to others, and maybe in wealth and riches and luxuries too. But that's the ultimate goal in life, to feel good. I know that's very spiritual, but feeling good comes from creating. And the ultimate creation is who we become. That is it. So who are you going to become right now? Let go of your expectation. And remember that creating feels good. So go create and just do the best you can by focusing day by day by day, and attach a very powerful meaning to everything that you're going through right now. This is either going to make you or break you. It's either your worst experience or your best experience. This experience and the next experience and the next experience. But whatever truth you choose is 100% your fault, your responsibility, and your choice.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very good advice. And talking about rituals and routine, I still wake up on a daily basis and think about what I'm grateful for. And that goes back down to right at the beginning of the day. What do you have? What a heartbeat. What do you have in your life that you can be thankful and grateful for? And that sets you up for a fantastic day. And still appreciate that to this day.
You know what I realized in hospital? I realized, man, I kind of laughed because I was doing lots of reflecting. And I just thought, you know what? As long as you're breathing and your heart's beating, there's really no problem. Everything else is fixable. Everything else is manageable. But if you can't breathe, you're in trouble.
Yeah, indeed you are. So look, that was a great way to end it. I know, JP, you're a very busy guy. As mentioned, we could have sat here for hours and dissected every bit of that. But thanks so much for being on the show. You know, we're carrying on. This is the series finale. And just to sort of let people know, we will be back with another one. And Oliver Morgan will be our next host. So be prepared for that. But as mentioned, it was really insightful. It's been a fascinating journey that you've had, JP. And please come back on the show again, maybe for next series or for any future ones as well. Feel free.
I'm happy to, and I look forward to sharing this conversation. Make sure you share it with me.
Right. Thanks again then, JP. All the best.
Everyone. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Take care.